imagine somebody who has ideas that are actually their identity, all right? So if you disagree with that, you disagree with me as a person. He's not like that. He's playful and he's light with his ideas. And I think that's the way to go.
I believe. Recording.
Easy now, rude boy.
Easy now.
Easy now.
Three-Headed
Hydras. I'm Josh. This is James on South. And today's subject is Russell Brand. We want 60 seconds on Russell Brand. I've followed Russell Brand since he was a British comedian, and he's kind of gone on from there to be a Hollywood superstar, and now he's kind of a thoughtful, spiritual leader or something along those lines. He's become a real thinker and philosopher, and I've enjoyed every step. I've seen some of his live stand up, and I've read his book, The Bookie Wookie.
Bookie Wookie?
I think you did too. I read the first one, so he's got an interesting life story. And I mean, maybe because he's kind of a British guy from up the road, I can relate to him in that sense. And he's gone on to live a fantastic life, and he's come full circle almost. Not full circle, but there's a real evolution. So yeah, that's why I like Russell Brand. Jay, just give me a minute.
That's what we love in any person, Dan. It's not about the destination, it's about the trajectory. Miley Cyrus once said, it's the climb. She's never been wrong. Russell Brand is a perfect example of the climb. Like you said, he's gone through many different morphings, He really is the metaphorical butterfly from the moth into the package. What do you call it? He's become something very beautiful out of something potentially very ugly. He had serious drug problems, addiction problems, sex addiction, no less. And then he's chased fame. That was another addiction that he's talked about. And now he's into a sort of a spiritual realm, and he's always open to new ideas. That's what I love about him. Even people that disagree with him, he sits down and he talks to them with respect, and he shares his ideas and he shares his philosophy with everyone. So I think he's a really positive force. Salvatore, ben intende.
Yes, well, I do not know him that super well, but I first noticed him also, I guess, when he was a comedian, and he was in some Hollywood movies back then. What I can say about him is he's entertaining to watch. That's why usually I check out his old clips, especially when he's talking with politicians, because his mind, it jumps around like a pinball. It's really hard to follow when he gets into a rant, He's a very thoughtful person, though, and he has some very good ideas, also with his podcast that he's running now. Although I enjoy him more, I enjoy some of the content, of course, even though I don't agree sometimes. But I like the topics that he chooses to talk about. So that's always it's like a food for thought, as you say. Yeah. And but then he's one of those people, I must say, where sometimes I have to stop watching for a while, and then I can watch him after a break. Maybe just my introvert brain that needs some time off from the extrovert thunder. What do you call it?
Yeah, he's quite in your face, isn't he?
Yeah. So sometimes I need to take a break and get back to him, and then I enjoy him more when I took a break. But yeah, that's how I know him, actually.
Do you know what we have in common with Russell Brand, Sal?
We?
You and I. Me and thee.
I don't know.
He is a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Ah, yeah, right.
Player, as it were.
Really?
So,
who is it?
Joe Rogan told him to. But no, he's a fascinating character, like you were saying. So I don't always agree with him, but I always respect him. And I think that's a healthy place to be. And I think that's a really healthy example for everybody. You can talk about ideas that you disagree with, and you can usually find common ground with people as well. One of my favorite podcasts of his was with Jordan Peterson, and he and Jordan Peterson disagree on a lot of things. Russell Brand's very left-leaning and very sort of equity-minded, and Jordan Peterson is all about personal responsibility. So they were discussing and really concentrating and listening to each other on how these two things can sort of blend together. How can we talk about the structure of society, but also make sure that people take personal responsibility. And I think they got to a really, really healthy, constructive conclusion on that. Mm-hmm. And then there, I think
there was also a lot of love between them, wasn't there? Journey, like from the start, they came in with a lot of respect, and they were talking about each other's partners, and it was all very nice from the off. And then they got into the weeds and then worked their way out of them, which is quite a nice thing to hear. Did he do 2 with Jordan Peterson or just 1?
I'm not sure.
The other one I remember was Sam Harris, because that was quite interesting, and it was a real test. There was more animosity there, I said, but not real animosity, because like you say, the thing he's really good at is in these kind of discussions that he gets involved in now, he puts his point across, and he always breaks the tension with a joke, because obviously he's a funny guy. And when things get, there was a point with Harris where he kind of made a point and then almost took it back and laughed at himself. Said, obviously I not mean that, but can't you see where I'm coming from? And it's never to. And it was a funny dynamic between them.
He's extremely self-aware as well, He knows what his limitations are. He knows what his past is. He knows how his own mind works, and he brings that into the conversation, and he's open about it, and he's honest about it. I really appreciate honesty. Even if I disagree with somebody on certain politics, certain ideas, there's always that strong foundation of respect. Russell Brand, like you say, he's a funny guy because his mind works so quickly, and he's so fluent with his ideas. And his vocabulary is incredible. We think, he's just a BSer, because he just knows 5 words. Well, listen to him for an hour and you'll learn 25 new words because his mind is sharp. He's a great orator and extremely fast.
He seems like he's kind of done. He's on the face of him, because when I first saw him as a comedian, like you say, his vocabulary is vast and he's so articulate, and that would have you think that someone's clever from the off, and he's almost clever on the face, and then he's kind of backfilled from there, because now when he does have these interesting discussions with people, he really is trying to back himself up with some good arguments and a good kind of intellectual standard, I suppose, for these arguments he's having. He gets into the weeds with them and thinks, right, why am I wrong, and really tries to find out. That's just something you've got to respect. And I guess because people give him a lot of stick, I suppose, because he's so big that maybe you can't, every time he gets beaten, people want to see it. But you've got to understand he's gone into a new realm. It's not his game he's playing. He goes in there, and of course he gets beaten because this is what he's trying to.
But the paradigm, Dan, if you'd allow me, the paradigm there is incorrect, because he doesn't go in to win. So if you don't go in with a competitive mindset, it's not that you win or lose. You win or you learn. But he's not fighting anybody intellectually. He's actually going in with, these are my ideas at the moment. You have incredible expertise, and I would like to learn from you. And then he adapts his ideas to them. I think that's a really, really healthy example for anybody who goes into a discussion with somebody who potentially has a different perspective from them, to go in with an open mind and to truly listen to the other person, because they have ideas that you have never even thought of before.
But I think his personality is the biggest part of what I enjoy about these kinds of conversations, because everybody can have conversations about certain topics with experts and test your own knowledge and their knowledge, and then see where you go. But what I find special with him is what you said before. The result of that is that thanks to his communication skills, most conversations seem to be very light-spirited, and he's very charming, so he disarms people who are potentially very disagreeable. Like he got Jordan Peterson to laugh. He got a smirk out of Sam Harris. These are people that in other conversations you see how they very much insist on their own point of view, or get angry, even maybe not in a very super obvious way, but you can tell that they're starting to get angry or impatient. And he kind of takes this heaviness out of the conversation and kind of disarms the other person, and allows them to actually not take themselves too serious, because he doesn't take himself too serious either. And so he basically creates this very pleasant space for communication. And I think that's one of the things that I like the most about him.
What I've just thought of when you were saying that, Sal, is exactly that. Actually, you've put your finger right on it. That he's very playful with ideas, right?
Mm.
He's not so married to his ideas that if you prod one of them, he's going to flip out because he imagine somebody who has ideas that are actually their identity, all right? So if you disagree with that, you disagree with me as a person. He's not like that. He's playful and he's light with his ideas. And I think that's the way to go, because we are not our ideas. What we think now is not what we thought 5 years ago or 10 years ago, even last week in some cases. So
Right.
just enjoy the process and really do listen to other people when they're giving their point of view.
I think he's learned that the hard way almost, because I think he was famous and he was this Hollywood actor, and then he had all these ideas about where society was wrong, and he put them to the test because he was doing he was getting involved in politics, but sort of only dipping a toe. And maybe during all that, he kind of found out that maybe he wasn't 100% right in his stance. And then this is what I respect about him, is he's actually studied, at university and gone off and made good use of his time and platform, and is, like you say, going about it in the correct way. It's not as if that wasn't always his approach. I think he threw himself into the fire, got burned, went out, and instead of just saying, well, I'm going to go and do a load of Hollywood films again, he said, right, this is something I can apply myself to, and that's what he's doing in his stuff. And we always say, don't we, James, in his when they get to a problem during his discussions with people, he always says, well, what are we going to do?
What are you going to do about that?
Going to do about it? Which is just a simple question, but it's one that often gets skipped over during these complex discussions. That that's what he said to himself. It seems, what am I going to do about it? And he's doing something about it. I
mean, you touched on the journey there, then. But in his book, he probably talks about it a lot more. What was his path from his teenage years until the 40? I think he's in his 40s now. Could you maybe just outline that roller coaster?
So he was. It didn't sound like he had too rough a childhood, really. I think his mum and dad were separated, and he maybe took it badly, and then. But I think he saw his dad and he saw his mum, and he did get into. He was obviously a keen drama student. That's where he found himself in school, and then went on to the Italia Conti School of Arts. Is it, James? I think
so. Yeah, a famous one in London, isn't it?
Yeah, quite a prestige arts college. So he was obviously talented from the off, which I didn't realise before reading this book, because I kind of presumed he was. It almost seems as though he was this kind of skaghead who found his way to a stage. Well, it was though, wasn't it? Because
skaghead is a drug addict, right?
Well, he's like a heroin addict.
Yeah, he was full on. He couldn't have gone any heavier. Heroin, none of this weed, straight in.
But I think maybe the impression I had that, like I say, he was kind of a homeless drug addict, but I don't think that was ever really the case. I think he struggled with addiction and was trying to suppress a lot of sadness through drugs. But I think his talent always gave him a bed to sleep in at night, at least, because it sounds like he did have quite early success, but in a lesser way. And then I think when he kind of kicked the drugs, he got into. So he did the university, and then I think he had roles in a few programs or something like this, maybe. And then because of his addiction, he lost them, and he was upsetting people. And then he eventually found his way to comedy. Like when he was getting back on his feet, he took to the comedy stage a lot, and then he landed his role in Big Brother, and that was kind of his projection to success after that,
Well, sorry, just to interject there, Dex, what I remember from his book is specifically that period that you're talking about there, where he was getting roles and starting to get some recognition, but he was an absolute mess. And the problem was his self-identity, right? Because he had this self-identity of, I'm kind of this messy guy, you can't really rely on me, but I'm just a clown. I'm just the court jester kind of figure. And so he just wasn't reliable. You don't know if he was going to turn up or not. He'd be out getting absolutely off his face, and he wouldn't know if he was going to turn up the next day or not. And that was kind of his self-identity, because once you make yourself a reliable person, you also set yourself up to let people down. And I think that was the paradox which he slowly found. He said, well, look, I need to put myself in that position where I risk things. I risk failure, because if you're always failing anyway, then you never even get a chance, do you, to show what you can do. And I think that was kind of the mental trick that he was playing on himself from what I've read. And he decided in the end that, look, I need to stop messing around. Number one, because it's going to kill me. And number two, because I haven't got as much to lose as I think I do. And that was a really refreshing thing which sort of changed his mindset.
Well, it's remarkable. It's hard to get out of that,
Yeah.
It's almost
impossible. A lot of people are stuck in that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he's amazing. And then, like you said, then he went to Hollywood, and then he sort of stepped back from that as well, from what I understand, right?
What's funny is that now when I listen to his, because you're right, Sal, you kind of go on and off, but I do with a lot. I mean, you've got so much content out there now. You kind of do that with everyone. You get into it, and you go out of it. And I'm not really on a Russell Brand phase, but when I do dip into him at the moment, he keeps saying, when I was famous, or when, and you think, well, you are still massively famous, but I suppose he means when I was really in the thick of it. And it's funny to hear him say that now. But it reached he was as high as anyone could be, wasn't he? He was in all the biggest films, all the biggest actors, married to the biggest pop star, and obviously just, I mean, like quite often with these things, that they, once you've reached these heights, there's nothing else to go for, and you realise that can leave you very empty, can't it? And he obviously found that, and he's where he is now.
But we're lucky as listeners that he made that realization, because I think once you get to that height and you look around and you think, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. This isn't what they said it was going to be. The other option is to try to keep going, and this is when people die early, unfortunately, because there is no end, and there's never a satisfying point. And so what he did is scale down and say, well, I'm getting off this train right now because it's a runaway train and I don't like where it's going. And he went back to basics. So like you said, he started a master's degree. He's got his own podcast. He does his stand-up, which is absolutely brilliant, actually. I find him hilarious. And he lives at home with his wife and his kid and his cat, or his cats. And I just think he's a really refreshing guy, and he's very spiritual. What I find interesting about him, actually, particularly, is that he's a bloke, like you said at the beginning, Dan. He's a bloke who you could sort of shout at through the van window, and he'll shout back, and he'd enjoy that, I think. He's sort of a guy from down the road, as he said. At the same time, he's spiritual, in the sense that he's very into meditation, into yoga, into understanding himself in his own psychology. And I think when you can marry up those two things, then it's a very unique place, because I don't think it's not always acceptable, is it, to be, or it's not always as common, shall we say, to be sort of one of the lads, and also very spiritual. But I think more and more these two identities are beginning to join, because people realize that you don't have to choose one side. Like, all of us are different people at different times, so we don't have to choose one fixed one fixed identity, I suppose.
Yeah. Can be both at one time. Well, I must say, I don't like the stand-up as much nowadays, but that's quite common in stand-up, isn't it? When these guys come out, they're really raw, and after a while, maybe the fame and the money doesn't make them as hungry for the, I don't know, that's often, that could be a different 20 minutes, but that's often what you find with stand-up, is they come out there, that they can't, it's rare that a stand-up gets funnier and funnier and funnier.
It's something I've heard this being commented on before, that if you say, well, stand-up's hilarious when it's commenting on everyday life, the richer and more famous you get, the less everyday life you've got to comment on, right? So like, well, it's funny, something happened in the business lounge the other day when I was waiting for my flight, and everyone's like, well, sorry, I can't relate to that. So you lose that sense of a relationship with the audience. But yeah, I think it's a common occurrence.
But I will say, did you see the Messiah complex? Because I feel like this one of his stand-ups, it must have been maybe, I don't know, 2015 or something like this. And it was kind of on the bridge, I suppose, from comedy to the kind of political and like educational stuff. And it was the premise was kind of he had it was Che Guevara, Hitler, Gandhi, and Jesus, and he did a bit on. He did kind of 15 minutes on each of them, and then kind of put himself forward as one of these characters. And it was really it was a really clever thing, but it was kind of he still had the humour, definitely.
Yeah,
and watched him live the second time. I didn't really I didn't think it was as good, but maybe that's just my opinion. Comedy.
Your opinion is valid, brother.
Comedy is subjective after all.
Absolutely, and it also depends on you. The comedy stays the same, and then you're a different person every day. So how you look at it changes, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but that's 20 minutes. So Russell Brand, he is a character. He's worth another 20, but he's a credit. He's a credit, and he's a great positive force in the world, if you ask me. So thank you very much. We have been and we are, and we will be, the Three-Headed Hydra. My name is James. The Ginger Fox, he goes by the name of Joshua William Dennison. And the curly-headed one goes by the name of Salvatore Benintende. And we will see you next time. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Why are we making these podcasts? Because 3 heads are better than 1. We'll combine our experiences and research on engaging topics to learn a bit more each time, enjoy the chat, and improve our own communication skills in the process. Innovation comes from the ability to correlate information between different realms of knowledge, and we all have very different realms of knowledge between the 3 of us.
Why the Hydra, you ask? In archetypal mythology, dragons guard piles of gold. Overcoming fears can bring great rewards. What you most need is often where you least want to look, and we won't shy away from the fire to challenge each other and reach that goal.
What's in it for you, listener? Learn, laugh, and love. Get involved and join us on this adventure.